Hey Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and welcome to our first impressions of the Antarctic late summer game update. We're going to go through and do like a full analysis of the patch notes, but I'm actually just so excited that I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on this right here. There will be a link to the video in the description that Firax has put out if you want to check it out yourself. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of go through this and give my first impressions on thoughts on the things that they're going to be changing, because I've actually been working on like a sort of master list of things that I want to see changed, and already from the quick little glance through this video that I saw, they're addressing quite a few of them. So we're just going to go through and kind of give our impressions. Alright, I had it on 2x speed. We'll go down to normal.
Fans, as always, we've been keeping a careful eye on your feedback, both on social media and within the game's online communities. We always want to know what we can do to deliver the best possible Civilization experience, so we thank you for your help and support. Since things can always be improved, we'd like to share some of the additional refinements we've been working on. First, we're updating the natural disasters and climate change in a few ways. We've toned down the damage from blizzards, and we're letting that type of storm occasionally add food to the map. We've also reduced the yields from dust.
Cool, awesome. Blizzards did feel really punishing, so I'm quite happy that now they can have positive effects. And then we're going to check out the Haboob stuff.
Storms, which had previously been very generous. We also took a detailed look at the timing for climate change and made some adjustments there. The natural disaster setting is no longer tied to climate change, so just because you like a lot of floods and eruptions, you won't have to get accelerated climate.
Cool, okay.
CO2 emissions from military use.
I'm really happy about that, because sometimes I think it was a little bit, I don't know, it didn't feel so great, because I really like having lots of natural disasters, but I didn't like the idea of the climate change being accelerated, so I'm kind of happy that those are separated. I think that's a really positive change for the game.
Were cut in half, and they can be reduced further when you research advanced power cells.
That's another really good change. So basically, navies were like a really big source of climate change, because they use up a lot of coal and oil and all that sort of stuff, and so now they produce less CO2 per unit of thing produced, which is really cool. I'm pretty happy with that, because it felt like, I don't know, I just never really felt good about building sea units that use coal or oil as a resource or as like upkeep, because it felt like I was just getting kind of punished for it.
This should nearly double the time period between sea level rises. We've pushed up the number.
Okay, that's actually huge, because I felt like sea level rises happened so fast that you never had time to actually do anything about them. So roughly doubling the time is pretty cool. We'll kind of see how it plays out in actuality. It might be like it goes from being 10 turns to 15 turns. Like it might be a 50% increase on DD just because of how much stuff the AI tends to build and all that sort of thing. But certainly, it's going to be better, right? Because they've made adjustments to it, so it has to be at least take longer between each one.
Number of coastal tiles that can flood from 35% to 45%.
Oh wow, that's a pretty significant change. So instead of it being just slightly over a third of tiles, it's now just slightly under half of tiles can flood. And when I say tiles here, I mean coastal tiles. And I think that's really cool. It's going to make it much more important for you to get things like the coastal defenses, the flood barriers. And it's also going to make you have to be a little bit more conscious about the decisions that you make with regards to the coastal tiles that you need to use. And also it's going to make at least the player probably act a little bit more cautiously when they're just kind of rampantly outputting CO2.
And we've made it so global temperature change increases the chance of storms even further, especially
Cool.
for those most violent varieties, such as the Category 5 hurricanes. Finally, we've added a new desertification mechanic that means that tile yields will decrease if you let climate change get out of hand. At phase 4 and above, storms no longer provide any enhanced fertility. And at phases 5 and above, storms start to strip off fertility gains added to the map through previous floods, storms, and volcanoes.
Okay, that's actually really cool. I like that, because it means like if you can have like this window of where the tiles are slightly better, but if the climate change gets out of hand, it'll start to roll back those nice tile yields, and then you're going to have to really start thinking about, well, I was kind of relying on those nice tile yields, now I need to figure out how I kind of adapt to this new situation. I like that it now has a push and a pull mechanic. That's something I'm a really big fan of when it comes to game design. I like it when there is something really satisfying about stacking bonuses on top of each other, but there is also something really satisfying about being in a scenario where you can stack bonuses on top of each other, but you also have to try and make sure that you don't lose those bonuses through some other mechanic. And it kind of creates a situation where you're trying to promote the positive effect and minimize the negative effect, which makes the gameplay more interesting in my opinion. So that's a really cool change. I like it.
changes mean you'll experience the climate change system a little later in your game with slower progression, but the disasters will hit a lot harder when things get to their final phases.
Cool. I'm on board with that.
It's important for us that each leader and their civilization can stand the test of time, no matter when they were introduced in the game. For this update, we wanted to take a fresh look at all of our new as well as existing civs. Here are some of the changes going in for the civilizations we introduced in Gathering Storm. First up are the Maori, with their insanely good tile yields. So we adjusted the culture per tile from the Marai from +2 down to +1.
Okay, that's pretty reasonable. It is like a 50% nerf, but it was really, 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 really strong. And I still think, I think, yes, they're getting hit by like 50% of the power bonus on this particular bonus, but I still think they're going to be like really strong. So I actually don't think this is going to hurt the Maori too much, simply because their power level was so incredibly high that like taking a knock off them like this just kind of sets them down to being like really strong. So yeah, that's my opinion on that one. I'm a fan of that change. I felt like they were a little bit too strong. Personally speaking, I actually don't like nerfs to saves unless they're like super overpowered. What I really like to see is buffs to things. I like to see, a lot of people go, oh, well, that introduces power creep. And it's like, yeah, but that's fine. What you want is everyone to feel really, 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 really strong in really, really confined situations. And the Maori, I think their problem was that their bonuses was a little bit too strong and too consistent. So either you can knock down the consistency or you can knock down the power level, and they went for keeping it really consistent but locking down the power level. So I'm okay with it, but it's not the preferred way to design unless something is hugely abusive.
We also bumped down the strength of the Toa unit to 36 and made it so the Haka War Dance no longer stacks.
That's pretty reasonable.
Hungary's discount on upgrading city-state units is being changed from 100% to 75% for both gold.
That's actually a fairly significant nerf to Hungary, because it means now you have to worry a bit more about strategic resources, gold, and all that sort of stuff. And Hungary is already pretty hard pressed for gold when levying troops, because as you upgraded the units of the city-state, the gold cost of levying the next time started to skyrocket as well, because, you know, the city-state had better units, and that means it costs more to levy the city-state's units. So I would say this is a significant nerf to Hungary. I don't think it is going to break them. I think it is going to make it a little bit harder to do certain things with them, but I think overall their power level remains roughly the same. I feel like the Raven King is more of like an early game bonus that you can use to quickly knock down a neighbor or something. So I think, you know, I still think they're in a good place, but this is like a reasonable nerf in my opinion.
Gold and resources. Finally, we helped Canada out a little bit with the extra point of production on snow and tundra tiles.
In snow, tundra, snow hills. Yes, okay. This is actually exactly the buff that I had been discussing, I think, with the Saxy Gamer. Well, it's actually slightly different. What I was saying was that Canada should get +1 production on tundra, on mines in tundra, snow, and in tundra and snow. And it looks like they just straight up gave +1 production to Canada across the board. So I think that's actually a fair, like, this is a buff that I super agree with and that I'm super on board with. I feel like Canada's biggest weakness was just production. And this is going to easily transport Canada from being like a low tier civ to being like a competitive civ, which is great because they're a really fun civ to play. They have a really great theme. They have really interesting abilities. And I think they have the potential now with this production boost to be a contender.
Now onto our existing civs. India's missionaries now get 5 spreads instead of the default 3. They also...
That's pretty good. Slightly better missionary spreads. This makes India a much better religious civilization, and in fact, often it's not missionaries you use to spread your religion. So I like that this pushes India to approach the religious victory in a different direction. Normally, what you do when you're going for a religious victory, at least in the sort of strategies that I've built up myself, you will go for apostles with very specific promotions. For example, the ones that give them extra strength for converting, ones that eliminate pressure, and ones that elimination pressure and extra strength in enemy civilizations and extra spreads. Those are the 3. So this might actually push India into a direction where they can lean a little bit heavier on the missionary side of things. I don't know how much that is going to affect things. I do think one thing I would like to see changed in the religious arena is I kind of wish that the religious pressure spread by trade routes had like a base value of 0.5 and then scaled with the number of followers of that religion in the city. So if you had a city with 10 followers of Buddhism and you were trading with another city, you would get 0.5 because the city majority religion is Buddhism, and then you would get plus 0.1 for each follower of that religion. So you would get a total of 1.5 pressure for that trade route. I think that would be cool. That would be like, I feel like it's one of those little tiny nudges that would push the religious system into a slightly more thematic and interesting direction, but it's not really a big change, so I see why they haven't really made that change. But you could also, but the important thing there is you could have a city that has multiple religions, right? So the majority religion gets the 0.5 bonus, and then let's say you have a city that has 5 Buddhists and 4 Catholics. The trade route would give you 0.5 Buddhism plus 0.5 Buddhism for them being the majority, but you would also get 0.4 Catholic pressure, and I think that would just make it a little bit more interesting, right? I don't know if that's really feasible or possible, but that's kind of like what I would do to change it a little bit.
Receive an amenity for each religion present in a city, and an extra religious pressure along the trade routes.
Okay, an extra amenity for every religion with at least 1 follower is huge. That is crazy good. It's going to mean that as Gandhi, you might even want to forward settle someone with a different religion and then try to get like missionaries from that city and bring them back to your own city and just trying to get a follower. That's really, really powerful. This is actually a huge power upgrade for Gandhi. Sorry, not Gandhi, for India. No, not a huge power level upgrade. It's a huge power level upgrade for the ability, because previously it just gave you the follower beliefs. Now it actually gives you amenities. It gives you extra missionary spread. So I think this is a really, really cool ability. I love the design of it. I love the new design of the Dharma ability. I think it's going to make India a stronger religious civilization, and I think it's going to make them more interesting to play, because how they interact with the religion system is now different to every other civilization in the game. They're not going to want to do things with inquisitors, say the way that Spain does. They don't want to eliminate other religions from their cities. They want to have other religions in their cities, which is a really cool idea. I like it. I think it's a really fun and interesting way to make them not only stronger, but unique to play. So I'm a big fan of that change, and we'll go ahead and have a look at the next one.
To be consistent with the Maori Toa, the stacking of the Indian Varu combat buff was prohibited.
That's pretty
to
reasonable.
For that, we reduced our maintenance down to 2. China's Great Wall improvement can no longer be removed by natural disasters, and we gave the Dutch
Okay, that's actually really, really nice, because that was something I didn't encounter, but if that was how it worked, that would be really, really annoying.
And we gave the Dutch a production bonus toward flood barriers and dams. We've also made the...
That's a nice change. The Dutch getting a bonus towards flood barriers and dams. I don't think it's going to completely buff them into like being OP-ness, but I do like that they're putting in these like little thematic boosts, right? Because what you're trying to do is make gameplay interesting and capture the theme of the civilization. And I think so far that I've seen from all of these changes, they have 100% hit that goal, in my opinion, and I'm really, really happy with it. So it looks like these are getting buffed, which I'm a huge fan of. We'll go into depth on this stuff when we get to the when we actually have the patch notes in front of us. I was just really excited and wanted to make this video.
The Chateau, Sphinx, Mission, and Great Wall unique improvements stronger. We hope this evens the playing field for everyone and encourages players to go back and give established civs another try.
With this update, we've started to look at the World Congress and diplomacy systems. They'll be receiving additional improvements in the months ahead, but here's what's going into the game now. The Climate Accords competition now enables projects for decommissioning power plants.
Okay, that's cool. Decommissioning power plants, which will give you score towards the competition. All right, that's a cool little thematic thing. Again, this is another one of those things that I really, really like about for me, game design isn't about like it's the difference between for me, good game design offers players opportunities to role play and then incentivizes those opportunities to role play, right? If you just give the players the ability to decommission a power plant, okay, cool. So somebody is going to role play that. But if you give the players the ability to decommission a power plant and the ability to and offer an incentive to do that, so now the player has to make a choice. Well, do I want to keep that power plant to keep the extra power? Do I want to keep, you know what I mean? Do I want to transition to renewable resources? This now has become, in the context of the wider game, an interesting decision that's tied to a temporary event, which adds pressure to the decision, right? Because it's like, oh God, well, do I really want to make this decision? Because if I do it in the next 30 turns, I'm going to win some bonuses towards this thing. And then it's like, blah, 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 and I need this diplomatic victory point because I'm going for diplomatic victory. And it just makes the sort of decision tree and decision experience of the player a lot more interesting and dynamic. And I'm a big fan of it. I like it.
Excessive CO2 emissions now reduce your favor per turn and your score.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. If you emit too much carbon, you hurt your diplomatic score. So that means you're going to have a harder time with the... these are interesting changes. I like them.
Aid requests. And having too many grievances reduces
Wait,
your
aid
favor
requests?
per turn.
What was that? Sorry?
CO2 emissions now reduce your favor per turn and your score in aid requests. And having too many grievances reduces your favor per turn, and being at war with the target of an aid request reduces your score in that competition.
Very interesting. Okay, I like those changes. Because it's kind of like it goes back to that capturing the theme. You know, if you're sending aid money to someone you're at war with, it's like, what? Or if you are if somebody's being hit by natural disasters and you're just rampantly pumping out pollution, yeah, like, dude, screw you. You're the person who caused the flooding because you messed up the environment, right? So I like that these have sort of they're thematically linked in a way that makes the gameplay interesting. So I like that. And I feel like diplomatic favor was a little bit too explosion-y, right? I felt like it was all like faucets and no drains. Like it was just a ever increasing amount of diplomatic favor coming into the game. And sometimes it is a good idea when you're working with a currency to have something that pulls that currency out of the market. Otherwise you get this massive amount of diplomatic favor in the late game, right? And I think that's okay.
We've also worked on a ton of quality of life changes and balance tweaks. For starters, we're iterating on our jersey system that will make
Cool.
each Civ's colors distinguishable from one another, even after multiple players choose the same Civ.
Cool.
We put a lot of work into how the AI puts deals together, including being sure to not present the player with the same deals repeatedly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If the AI stops giving me the same deal over and over, I will be so happy. Please let it be true. Oh, that's awesome.
Barbarian camp distribution has been evened out across the map. City-states have more defenses on higher difficulties.
Thank you.
The Play-by-Cloud lobby now filters out completed games. The
Awesome.
now awards plus 10 gold.
Needed.
The Temple provides a diplomatic victory point.
That's really interesting. That kind of changes that kind of changes the early game. Maybe if you're going for some sort of diplomatic victory point, because you can go for a diplomatic. That's interesting. That's an interesting change. It seems like a small thing, but I think it actually does have a significant impact if you're planning on a diplomatic win.
Naturalists are a bit cheaper.
That's
We've
really
increased
important.
The cost of upgrading units.
Naturalists felt like the most expensive thing in the universe. I felt like they were way too expensive. And now that they're a little bit cheaper, I'm much happier. Because I felt like oftentimes the limiting factor in me getting naturalists was not how much land I could assign to the naturalist. It's like, how much faith could I gain? And that really just made me feel like if I'm going for a culture victory, I just have to go for a religion and I just have to get an insane amount of faith so I can get these natural parks up, because they're like a huge source of tourism. But if that's been changed now, that's really, really awesome. Upgrading unit cost increase, I'm okay with that. Units felt a little bit cheap to upgrade, and there's also been a bit of an expansion of the amount of gold in the game. And so this kind of goes back to the currency thing that I was talking about. If all you have are faucets inputting currency, you're going to have this massive inflation of the amount of currency in your game. So it's good to have a few things that sort of pull that currency out of the map. And the raid and total war policy changes are what?
We've halved the effectiveness of the raid and total war policies, and pillaging improvements no longer provide science and culture, just gold, faith, and healing. Unless you're playing as Norway. We didn't want to hamper their pillage-based economy, so part of their unique ability is to still get science and culture from pillaging improvements.
Whoa, okay, so what they've done here is they've taken a game mechanic that they didn't like in the game. They've taken it out, but they've identified a civilization with a weakness and let them keep that game mechanic. And now that game mechanic is a theme of them. That is really cool. And this is like a way that you can tell that the designers and balancers at Firaxis are like really, really deeply thinking about their game and how they want to make changes. Because, you know, there's no way I would ever come up with that. I doubt there's anyone who would ever come up with the idea of just pulling a game mechanic out. So, you know, sorry, they probably would have said, oh yeah, we need to get rid of this game mechanic because it's a little bit too snowbally or whatever. But the sort of being able to chain that into, well, we actually have the civilization that like relies on pillaging pretty heavily. So how about we just like take this away for everyone else and leave it with them, and then they're kind of like a little bit better, right? So this is a really, really cool idea. What it does is it kind of transforms Norway from being this kind of civ to being like a civ with an actual gameplay hook, a thing that really pulls you into wanting to play them because they get gold and science and culture and all that sort of stuff from pillaging. And I do like the changes because I didn't really like. Sometimes I want to pillage people. Sometimes I want to pillage people and I just want gold. And if I'm pillaging a campus, I'm getting science. So I like this change overall. I think pillage economies were a little like the pillaging engine felt like a little weird to get science and culture. But I like that now it's gold. And I think gold is just better anyway if you're going for some sort of domination game, because what you need is like more units and to fuel your unit economy. So that's really cool.
Pillaging improvements. There are also several changes going out to all versions of Civilization 6, including 2 new user interface features that will make your path through history a little more organized. We integrated a popular mod called Map Tax that takes our map.
This is something I never thought that Firaxis would do, and I'm really, really surprised with this. And this change really makes me wonder what they might be planning for the future. If they're willing to take such a wow, I don't like this. I feel like this signals to me that they're like really, really open to continuing development on Sick, and I don't know why, but basically, what they've done here, if they've seen a mod that is so incredibly useful and powerful, and they've said, why don't we just put it in the game? And that's a really cool idea. I don't know exactly how to explain why I feel like this has like set them up for longevity, but I feel like this is a really, really, really good sign that the health and direction of Civilization 6 is in good hands.
Pins UI to the next level, adding dozens of new icons. There's also a super cool new map search feature that will make finding specific items much easier.
Wow. This is actually something that is in Paradox games pretty heavily. Almost all of the Paradox games has a search feature. I'm really, really happy with this. This is a great feature because sometimes there's something you need to find and you have a hard time finding it. Being able to just like search for it is so cool, fantastic, excellent. This really shows to me that they're kind of pushing their they're thinking about the user experience in a really deep way. Like, okay, how do we solve the problem of not being able to find something? Well, we just put in a search bar. Like the functionality exists. And it seems like a small thing, but I think this really shows that they understand the problems that players run into when they're playing the game, especially when you play a game and you might not play it again for another week and you're like, oh god, where are my builders, where are my jet robots, where are my tanks, and now you can just be like and find them. It's great. I think this is a great change.
Enter your term into the search bar and that item gets highlighted tile by tile. This new tool also remembers all of your favorite searches so you can bring them back up with just a few clicks. And now we have one more exciting update to tell you about.
The team and I are very happy to announce that we've made great strides with the new World Builder Basic mode for all the would-be amateur cartographers out there. We spent a lot of time improving, debugging, and polishing this tool so that anyone can jump in and create their own maps. We've also been adding a good deal of new functionality as requested by our fans, like brush sizes and more. So that's our overview of what will soon be coming to Civilization.
If the world map builder is way more robust, because I tried to do this a lot. I was trying to do some videos on scientific testing of like, okay, I wanted to do videos where I like scientifically test, okay, which tile is the best tile to work if you settle in this scenario, right? And it was really, really difficult for me to do that because the world builder was so difficult, so poorly laid out. So this change, like, has huge implications, not for like anyone, but for my channel, because it means I'm going to be able to do much more in-depth videos with the world builder. It's going to be really exciting.
Civilization 6. Stay tuned for when we release the full patch notes. Those will, if you can believe it, include even more fixes, balance tweaks, AI improvements, and additional updates. Don't worry, we're not even close to finish supporting Gathering Storm. Look for even more enhancements soon. As always, we'll continue to look out for your feedback on Civ Fanatics, the Civilization subreddit, the 2K and Steam forums, and all of Civilization's social channels. Thank you for being an amazing community. We're always happy to take one more turn with you.
I teared up a little bit there. Ed Beach, no, thank you. Thank you and the Civilization team at Firaxis. You guys have done an absolutely amazing job, in my opinion, on the Gathering Storm update, on the Gathering Storm expansion, and on the game in general. I feel like this is the most exciting and fun version of Civ that I've ever played, and I feel like anyone who doesn't agree with that is missing out. Like I still to this day see comments on people being like, oh, it looks like a mobile game. It's like, dude, I'm sitting here having like the time of my life playing this game. Okay, I will admit there are a few issues with the game, and I haven't been in a very good, sort of emotional state, that I was a little bit critical of the game for a long time. But I think that was a combination of running into the same issues and frustrations over and over, and not being in a good emotional state. But overall, I'm in a much better place, right? I'm still running into the same issues, but I'm dealing with them better, right, when I'm playing the game, and I'm very happy, and I'm just happy that we're seeing such a positive piece of communication as well coming out of the Firaxis team, because I feel like in the past, when it came to games like Civilization 4, Civilization 5, I feel like Firaxis and 2K, they didn't talk as much to their player base. And since I want to say since the beginning of Civilization 6, Firaxis have been sort of opening up a lot more, particularly on the Civilization franchise, and talking to the community a lot more, which I'm really, really happy with. And I think that's going to say really, really good things about the future of the game. And also, he said something really important there at the end. He said, we're not done supporting the game. So, Ed Beach, you sly little devil. I'm really looking forward to this patch, right? I love you all very, very much. Go check out the video on their own page. There will be a link to it in the description. I love you all very much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.